What is going on, YouTube? Happy Easter, and we've got a bit of an Easter special here. For those that follow me on Twitter, you have been expecting this video. We're just gonna have a little fun here. I ran a project on Twitter the last 3 or 4 days, polling people on the top 20 quarterbacks, calling it Twitter's top 20 QBs list for 2020. Just kind of looking at who's the best quarterbacks in a vacuum. So like if it was a fantasy draft situation, or just, you know, who in a vacuum would you rather have? Who is the quote-unquote best quarterback for 2020? So please do drop a like down below. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's hop on in. I'm going to go through 1 through 20, and then I'm going to kind of react, actually show my own top quarterbacks list through the Tier Maker website when this is all said and done. So let's just have some fun. And drop your comments down below where you agree and disagree. So 1 and 2, I didn't even poll it. Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, number 1, number 2. If you disagree, I don't really know what to tell you. It's pretty much an objective fact right now. If you really want to look into it, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Russell Wilson, maybe right behind him, but certainly behind him. It's pretty hard to make a case for Russell over Patrick Mahomes. You could do it, but we're going Mahomes 1, Russ 2. Didn't even open it up to Twitter. If that was not 1 and 2, what are we even doing here with this list? So quarterback 3 is where the polling actually started, and it was actually Aaron Rodgers in a landslide. So despite kind of the public perception of Aaron Rodgers, it might seem that the haters of Aaron Rodgers are more of a vocal minority and more of the majority of Twitter saying, yeah, I mean, he had a down year by his own standards, still got to the NFC Championship, had, Devontae Adams for 3/4 of the season, but after him, inside a new scheme, he had basically a bunch of non-NFL caliber receivers. So still a very good season. People perhaps expecting him to maintain that, elite, borderline elite status next year. So he's going to come in as the number 3 quarterback, and then the number 4 quarterback. This is where it kind of was interesting to me, because I left Lamar Jackson, who's not inside my top 4, off of the polling options because I can only set 3 guys, and I wanted to have that option for other if you wanted to kind of force a revote and get it to someone else. So Lamar was not an option on the top there. He's kind of the hot name. I figured, perhaps it was a bit of a flawed poll because I am a bit lower on Lamar Jackson, but putting him here in this option against Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, he wasn't really all that close to Deshaun Watson, which leads me to believe he would not have beaten out Aaron Rodgers because Deshaun Watson was on the last poll as well. So there's your defense for that for you Lamar Jackson truthers out there. We'll get to Lamar in a minute, but Deshaun Watson coming in as the 4th best quarterback. Clearly, people love the playoff success, the flashy plays, the leadership, the clutch ability of Deshaun Watson, the play extension, and all of that he brings to the table. People love to hate on Bill O'Brien as well. So Deshaun Watson actually going to come in as QB4 on Twitter's top 20 QB list. Now we are going to have Lamar Jackson coming in as number 5 on the list. So not being perceived as this all-around, in a vacuum, elite. Well, you could argue this is elite or not elite, but definitely being passed up to other quarterbacks that have shown better passing success, maybe better playoff passing success. Lamar Jackson is going to come off here, the defending MVP. Not a bad spot. There's Lamar Jackson truthers that think he's the best quarterback in the NFL and better than Patrick Mahomes. I'll talk about where I have him at the end of this. I disagree. Twitter tends to agree that he is a very good quarterback, but there are other more dynamic, true dual threat players in this league that do offer that mobility aspect but are better passers. So Lamar is going to be QB5, and then QB6 we have Drew Brees. So Twitter restoring a lot of faith in Drew Brees, who actually did play at a very high level last year, so I understand it. He has dipped off the last couple of years as far as once those playoffs start. He hasn't been that top elite passing threat, maybe a little bit too much in the short to intermediate game. So we'll see where I come out on Drew Brees at the end of this, but Twitter, still a lot of faith in Drew Brees, who really was spectacular last year, so I'm not going to put up too much a fight against that one. Then Carson Wentz going to come off at number 7. Now, again, we'll talk about this at the end of the video. I don't know if there's a huge difference between Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson. I think those guys really got to be neck and neck, so I do disagree with that. But he wins in a landslide here, kind of indicating a teardrop after Carson Wentz, at least in the minds of Twitter. A guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries, but still, when he's on the field, he is that difference-making quarterback. Really gives the Eagles a chance to win any game against anybody, and not just that, but dramatic comebacks, putting the team on his back type efforts. The people that have paid close attention to Carson Wentz, which clearly is a lot of people, putting a lot of respect on Wentz's name, inside the top 7 at least. And then number 8 here is going to be Matthew Stafford. So Twitter definitely showing that difference in tier gap here, because you've got Tom Brady and Matt Ryan right there neck and neck with these guys. But perhaps the added mobility, the extra arm strength that Matthew Stafford brings to the table, Twitter a little more comfortable with Matthew Stafford in a vacuum, more of that kind of, by definition, that more elite quarterback that can elevate the play of those around him with the spectacular, something that maybe Tom Brady at his age, Matt Ryan, just not quite able to do. So Matthew Stafford going to come in at number 8, and then Tom Brady. A really close poll here as well, but Tom Brady gonna get the number 9 spot, cracking the top 10. A lot of faith that he's still gonna play at a very high level there in Tampa Bay. Despite last season, it's kind of hard to make a case that he was not just a top 10 quarterback, but top 16. Like, there was a lot of bad games from Tom Brady last year. Perhaps a new change of scenery, better receivers. He can kind of open things back up and be that top 10 quarterback that Twitter is deciding he is going to be next year. Then number 10, we got the kid, Kyler Murray, cracking the top 10. I love this. I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. We'll see at the end of the video if I end up putting him in my top 10, but I'm not going to disagree with it. You add DeAndre Hopkins in here, year 2, not just in the NFL, but with Cliff Kingsbury. I could see it. I could see it, man. Kyler emerging as a true top 10 quarterback. But it was close. Matt Ryan was right behind him, just less than 1% behind him. So Twitter a little split as far as, do we like the young, exciting, explosive option in Kyler Murray, or the guy that's been here at a consistent level, playing at a top 10 level very consistently for the last 3 or 4 years, Matt Ryan. Not too far removed from an MVP season, but does have a lot of help there in Atlanta. He's pretty consistently had the best surrounding core. If you look at like a 4 or 5 year stretch, was not really any different last year, but it's not going to be any different next year. Julio isn't going anywhere. They continue to put weapons there around Matt Ryan. So people expecting just kind of that consistent, steady impact from Matt Ryan, but the lack of kind of big explosive plays, the lack of that mobility element, the lack of probably championships compared to other or even playoff success compared to other pocket passing veterans like Drew Brees, like Tom Brady, lowering Matt Ryan. We'll talk at the end of the video how I feel about that. Then Jimmy Garoppolo came in at number 12. So again, kind of with where you come in with Matt Ryan, maybe not the explosive element that you get from Jimmy Garoppolo, a little more mobility to his game. I think there's actually a pretty big split in the Twitter community with Jimmy Garoppolo. Some people really love him, felt he should have been a top 10 guy on this list. Some people think he's closer to like a Trubisky kind of guy that just doesn't have that it factor. I think it's a good spot for him. We'll talk about Jimmy at the end of the video. Then Big Ben emerges from the grave. Definitely a tough vote for people because we haven't seen Big Ben in over a year, and the one game that we did see him kind of got annihilated by the Patriots last year, which was a really good defense, but kind of a projection here from Big Ben, but I think it's a pretty solid spot. I do think he's going to have success there in Pittsburgh. He's got a great defense. He's got a pretty good receiving core that's getting, more experience, more veteran. Still going to have a good offensive line there in Pittsburgh. So I do think if that shoulder, that arm is okay, I think it's a pretty good spot for Big Ben. Then we got Kirk Cousins coming in here at number 14. This was a bit of a closer poll. That other option starting to get a little more intriguing. Dak Prescott's name starting to come up. Kirk and Dak, even Jared Goff. A lot of people kind of perceive these guys as interchangeable, kind of replacement level starter, like quality players. So Kirk comes in, he gets the vote. He had great production last year. We'll see, man. Without Stephon Diggs there, Thielen's going to be the lone option. We could see I don't see Kirk Cousins having a better year than he did last year, but I don't think it's a bad spot based on how he's played the last 2 years. I think it's definitely acceptable. But he definitely, is he a guy that's going to come in and win playoff games for your team? He did beat the Saints last year, so who am I to say that Twitter is wrong with that 14th spot? Then we do have Dak coming off here with the 15th spot. Outstanding season for Dak last year. I make a pretty strong case, or at least I strongly agree with, I should say, that Dak had the best surrounding core in the NFL last year. A pretty healthy unit for the most part. Great offensive line, 2 good running backs. To me, the wide receiving core that separated the best in the NFL last year, and also had a great play caller. Everything kind of has worked in Dak's favor for the most part for his career. The 1 year that things didn't go great, he was not a top 15 quarterback. So he gets the top 15 spot here. We'll see where he comes in on my own list at the end of this. I'm not going to shred on Twitter. I get it, man. He had a great year last year, and I think he'll be good again next year. So I'm not going to totally disagree with 15th for Dakota Prescott. So the 16th spot, Baker Mayfield. So people really scared off by his performance last year because heading into this last season, there's a lot of top 10 hype. Like, he looked really good, the number 1 overall pick, showing all of those elements with the arm strength, the downfield accuracy, the ability to extend plays, elude pressure. He really showed everything, but just fell apart in his sophomore season. Was a disaster year for the Browns. So you're kind of taking a chance here with Baker if you were to say he's a top 15 guy, because he didn't show it last year. I think he did show it his rookie year. I think the talent's all there. It's just going to be a wait and see season for Baker and the Browns with a new coach there. And then the 17th spot, Phillip Rivers, fitting, getting that number 17 with his ranking and his jersey number. I think he's going to be a good quarterback for the Colts. Just awful year for the Chargers last year. So I get the fall. I totally understand placing some of these other guys above Phillip Rivers based on how he played last year. Now, he's going to have an offensive line next year. But again, this is not like this is the in a vacuum voting as well. So if he doesn't have an offensive line, we saw what happened last year. Personally, I think he'll be a top 16 production-wise quarterback next year in a great fit there in Indianapolis. But I get it. In a vacuum, you're probably taking a more mobile Dak. You're probably taking a stronger armed Kirk Cousins for next season. So I understand it. I totally do. Then the 18th spot here. This one surprised me. Josh Allen climbing up. We're getting pretty close to the end here. That's going to be a little higher than where I have him. The accuracy really concerns me. The decision-making has improved, but some of those boneheaded mistakes are still there. The Bills won a lot of games last year, and he had an explosive playoff game, I guess, against the Texans. It was hit or miss. To me, don't personally understand this one. Just as a passer, I've also consistently been throwing Joe Burrow up there. Are you taking Joe Burrow or Josh Allen? I don't know. I think Twitter might be a little high on Josh Allen, but we'll break it all down in a minute. Then we had Sam Darnold just edging out Jared Goff. So Darnold has had a bit of a rocky start to his career, very up and down, almost like Jameis Winston-esque. A tough guy to evaluate. I think this is about right from Twitter. I do think he has a better year next year, and I think if you removed him from the Jets and put him in a more QB-friendly scenario, we'd probably be talking about him at least in the same light as Baker Mayfield, but maybe even more. I don't know. Sam Darnold's a tough case study. And then the last spot went to Ryan Tannehill over Jared Goff and Derek Carr. I don't know, man. That's a little crazy to me. I see Ryan Tannehill as a replacement level starter. I think Jared Goff just has done it in more years. He had a pretty rough season last year. The offensive line was awful, and he was still not atrocious last season. I don't know. My vote would have gone to Jared Goff. I think this is a recency bias thing here with Ryan Tannehill over some of these other options at this point. So there's your top 20 list. I'm going to lay it out in front of you here on Tier Maker. Great website. And then here is my list. I actually just created this template. If you guys want to use this and share your tier makers, you should be able to find it through the Tier Maker website. But, The top three I was in agreement with. I can get behind Deshaun Watson at 4 instead of Carson Wentz. I totally understand that. My case, though, is Wentz actually above those guys because if you look at it, yes, Wentz has had some inconvenient injuries, but he's actually played more games in the last 3 years than Deshaun Watson. He did stay healthy last year. He just happened to get a weird concussion and, again, missing playoff games, which freaks people out. But if it wasn't for a borderline dirty hit by Jadeveon Clowney, Carson Wentz finished last season healthy and was pretty spectacular given the receivers he had to work with. So I do think Wentz is going to have a great season. I would still take him over Watson, but I think those guys are really close. And I think their weaknesses as far as reading defenses and being accurate all over the field are actually pretty similar. So I understand it. I think those guys should be 4 and 5. Personally, I'm taking both Wentz and Watson over Lamar Jackson just because of, I think they're better passers, strictly put, and they bring that mobile element to the table as well. But I do like that mobile element that Lamar brings, so I have Lamar 6th. Now, this is where we get some pretty massive disagreement. I actually am taking Matt Ryan over guys in Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees. Here's the reasoning. I think mentally, he is right there with Drew Brees, Tom Brady. Not quite at that level, but physically speaking, he is more athletic. He actually showed some good stuff with his feet last year. It's definitely possible people weren't watching a lot of Falcons game last year because they weren't winning a lot of games. But I was actually impressed with Matt Ryan. I think in a vacuum, I would just rather have Matt Ryan because you get that mental element, but I think he's got a stronger arm at this point in his career than those other guys and brings everything for the most part to the table mentally. So you don't get the accomplishments that you get with Drew Brees and Tom Brady, but I'm going to take Matt Ryan as a pure quarterback for 2020. And then Matthew Stafford just, he's not a moron. He's not on the level of Ryan, Brees, and Brady, but he has such an advantage as far as the physical talents that I'm actually going to take him over Drew Brees. And then I'll put in Drew Brees and Tom Brady. So some slight disagreements in that 6 to 10 range. But then I do have Kyler and Jimmy Garoppolo, Big Ben. Those guys are kind of in this cluster of who knows what you're going to get. Jimmy, some highs, some lows. Big Ben could have some highs, could have some lows of those injuries. And then Kyler's just a young player. But I do agree with those guys in that range. And then I had Baker a lot higher than Twitter did. I like Baker for next year. I think he had a rough season last year, but showed a lot as a rookie, is going to have a lot of help around him. But I think he's a really talented player, and I would take that talent over guys like Cousins, Dak, and Goff, which Twitter agreed about Goff. Let's see here. Phillip Rivers was about the same spot. I actually put Joe Burrow in there ahead of Cousins, Dak, and Goff. I think Burrow, we haven't seen him play in the NFL, but I feel pretty confident saying he's going to be a better quarterback on day one than those other three guys that we keep talking about. Now, this was a big disagreement as we're getting towards the end of this here. I have Jared Goff ahead of some of these other guys that were voted ahead of him, like Ryan Tannehill, Darnold, and Josh Allen, because I think he's in that same group with Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. Yeah, he can, he doesn't bring that mobile element to the table. He kind of leaves a little bit to be desired between the ears mentally, but he's still a damn good quarterback. He still is one of the best deep balls in the league. To me, it's actually kind of difficult to differentiate Goff and Cousins. They're very similar to me. So to not have those guys really close is tough for me. It seems Twitter really dislikes Jared Goff. Then I do have Darnold over Josh Allen. I just trust his accuracy more, and I think they're both in the developmental stage of their processing part of their game. So I'm going to take the accuracy of Darnold over Josh Allen. Josh Allen's just had a much better team around him and has won a lot more games. Then that's pretty much it. They had Tannehill as a top 20 guy. I can't get behind that. I would have Carr above him. I would have Jared Goff above him. But then you could start talking about him in that 21 to 25 range. I think that's just a total recency bias thing. I definitely expect regression from Ryan Tannehill. So some disagreement, but definitely some agreement as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't know if we're going to have anything like this in the near future, but definitely a little bonus fun content. Please do hit that like button down below. I hope you enjoyed. Cheers as always, and we'll see you soon. Peace.